Hello everyone, today we'll be continuing our series 24 for Dummies. This is still the 1200 section, and today we're going to be covering some model games of the four major openings. So that is e4, e5, e4, c5, the Sicilian, e4, c6, the Caro-Kann, and the French defense as well. I'm looking to make this video a bit shorter than the last one because the last video with the model games I believe was over like 1 hour, because I basically chose 3 games in each opening, and that, yeah, as a chess trainer you really start to understand that like you plan to show a game in like 10-15 minutes and it always takes more than you expected, like every single time. So also, by the way guys, like if you notice that I'm speaking a bit funny, like the s's and stuff, like a bit of a lisp, that's because like I have this new like invisible braces thing, so I'm still getting used to that. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first game we're going to be going over is a Ruy Lopez. Actually, it's funny, like when I'm searching for these games, I'm just searching through the normal database in ChessBase, and I find, sort of random games. But this one was played by none other than Kevin Spraggett, which is a grandmaster that lives here in Portugal. He's Canadian, and he was really strong back in the 80s, 90s. He played in some candidates tournaments. So, like, really one of the best players in the world back then. So let's learn something from him. This game was quite instructive. Okay, I'm going through the moves kind of fast. I believe our current theory section ends somewhere around here. Yeah, move 5, right? So castles. I might have recommended d3, I'm not sure. But in this game, castles, anyways, like we learn a lot from, as I've said multiple times already, we learn a lot just by studying model games of like the structures, the basic structures and ideas. So it doesn't have to be necessarily our exact line. So black at some point goes b5. I believe in some earlier game we just saw this idea, right? This is one of the ideas of the Spanish. At some point we want to take the knight and take the pawn. So black should go b5, bishop b3, castles. Now c3, you'll notice that knight c3 does not have to be an automatic move. This is kind of the way that we play these positions when we learn to play chess, when we just picked up the game, and everyone develops their knights like this, and it looks kind of nice, and it's fine, but like it's more ambitious. It's more in the style of the Ruy Lopez and the Italians as well, to play c3 and try to build up the big center with d4. So you'll notice that this reason alone basically is what gives white a little bit of an edge in these positions in general, like in the Spanish and stuff, is that the knight is already on c6, and we don't have our knight on c3, so we can be more ambitious and go c3, d4. Okay, so this is pretty important. Black goes d6, and now h3. This move is important. I should mention, this little move is always, like 99% of the times, inserted in the Ruy Lopez's and the Italians, because if you go d4 immediately, this is playable as well, but black gets this extra option of going bishop g4, and this is really nice because he's putting pressure in the center. So you'll notice that, let me just make a random move, like a placeholder move. Black wants to take on d4, then take on f3, and completely damage our structure, because now we cannot take with a queen, right, on pain of dropping this pawn. So we have to take with a pawn, and this is not ideal, definitely not recommended for the 1400 or 1200 section of chess. To open up your king like this, really, really not recommended. So better than this d4 move back here is to go h3 first. Now black played the so-called Chigorin defense. It's kind of funny how a 1400 player back then in 1975, that's when this game took place, still knew all this theory. Yeah, d4. So what is the idea? What is black trying to do? Why did he move the knight to this awkward square on a5? He's just paving the way for this pawn to go to c5. Okay, so this is black's main generator of counterplay. It's this pawn push like this. It's also possible to do it in some other ways, like knight b8 is also a line. You might find this even more weird because the knight is just undeveloping, but black again wants to go c5 and then put the knight on d7, and it becomes a bit more harmonious. So in this game we have knight e5, c5. White strikes in the center. Of course, this was our idea. And now this move, knight d7. Okay, other moves, just for your information, are queen c7. I believe this is even the main line, probably. And now, this is a bit like beyond the point of the game, but my recommendation in these structures, this structure is extremely typical of the Ruy Lopez, okay? If you play the Spanish enough times, and not probably not that many times, like online, over the board, doesn't matter, you will get the structure quite often. And my recommendation is to always go d5, okay? Grab the space, grab the center, and these positions are just tough to play for black, and you have to know quite a lot to even come up with some idea to generate counterplay, okay? Because black is really asphyxiating in these positions. So my recommendation, always grab the center there if you can. But this is one of the main moves. Another one is knight c6. Another one is to trade on d4, then go knight c6. Black here has a little bit more of a breathing error. But in this game we have knight d7, and now Spraggett decided to take on c5. Again, my recommendation in general is just to go d5 in these positions. But let's see how this developed, because the way that the game continued is also quite typical. And black will make a mistake early on, which is this f6. So this is just an inaccuracy. It's not that big of a deal, but well, it kind of is, although like it's not a blunder, let's say. But he's weakening this light square diagonal, which is pretty important. He's weakening the king for no reason. It might feel just like a small pawn move. It's not that big of a deal, but it weakens the king quite a lot. And it also gives white some extra options. For example, Spraggett immediately took advantage of this and went knight h4, right? This move was not possible with the bishop staring down here. So this move f6 was rather bad. And now this knight gains this beautiful square, right? And it can come here. And also the way Spraggett now deploys his pieces is pretty instructive. So queen f3. Okay. So for example, just a quick idea, like this idea to bring the queen here to try and create an attack is quite typical, and white usually goes knight h2 in these positions to try and do that, and then queen f3 and like knight g4 and stuff. But here he got an even better move, knight h4, queen f3, and the knight's ready to come to f5. So bishop, knight, knight c6. Okay, now what do? We are going to keep improving our pieces. So it's too early to go for some mating attack. I mean, we could threaten mate. It's not like it's a mistake by any means, but we shouldn't be trying to mate the opponent when we have such such a small amount of pieces attacking the king, right? He's still got all these guys defending, so we should bring more pieces into the party. So that's what he does. Knight f1. Brings the bishop. And eventually black takes on f5. Okay, it's not really a good idea to give up the bishop pair, but as you can see, black's position is already quite awkward. And white is coming through with rook d1, knight g3, or knight h2 to g4. Again, this maneuver. So white's play is just flowing. He decided to take with a pawn, open up the queen's eyes. a4, rook b8, trades on b5. This concept, we've talked about this. This is also very important. So another basic idea of the Ruy Lopez is that the pawn on b5 is what we call a hook. So you should like almost always try and exploit it by going a4. And this is what we call like a favorable tension for white, because look, if black takes, we take, and now this pawn is isolated, and so is this one. You don't want isolated pawns because they're weak in general. And if black pushes, then he's giving us this square on c4. So for example here, I want to do something like bishop e4, putting pressure here, the knight has to defend, and then knight d2, the knight comes to c4, and this position is just a dream. Actually, even like c takes b4 probably just wins on the spot, and then we take this knight, take this one. So this is a favorable tension. So black rightfully keeps it intact, but now we get the file. So you can see it's like a win-win situation, this tension with a4. And now he finds this tactic with bishop takes c5. So bishop takes, queen d5, king h8, queen c5. But so this is typical. You might look at the game and see, okay, black blundered this tactic, but that's really not the story. So white was building up his position much better than his opponent. He got all the pieces to the right squares. He was putting pressure, and black collapses, right? So it's not like a blunder like out of thin air. Usually the blunders have a reason. Also, this one was quite pretty. This is already like the unraveling of the game, but nevertheless, it's quite nice. Queen a7. So he took, so we'll get to see the idea. He takes the queen back, but it's not even that he just won, that he exchanged pieces, because he even won a piece entirely. Because if black takes the bishop, we take the knight, and we're up this pony. So black goes bc3, bc3, rook e8, rook a7, and the position is just completely winning. Okay, and the game finished very soon. Knight f7, and he has this unstoppable mate here on h8. A very nice game by Spraggett, where we get to see a lot of typical ideas in the Ruy Lopez. Now let's move on to the Sicilian. So this is a game by Karpov, an even more famous, well, much more than Spraggett. But again, they coexisted in the same time frame, let's say, like their peak was around the 80s, 90s. So here we get an open Sicilian, namely the Najdorf defense, which is even the most popular opening in all of chess, I'm pretty sure. And our theoretical section ended here on move 5. So a6. The point of this move, I'm not sure that I've covered it in the theoretical section, but I definitely will in the next one, like in the 1400 video. So yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into that right now. It's not really the point of the video. Karpov goes for this move, bishop e3. If you don't know, it's like kind of famous that here in the 6th move of the Najdorf, there's like a million lines white can play. And it's not just like random moves, it's like viable lines that are tested in the elite of chess. There's like 12 or 15 moves here that are all serious lines for white. It's kind of a joke, actually. So black goes e6, f3, and we'll get to see a very typical Sicilian where, okay, black makes a lot of mistakes early on, but nevertheless, it's quite typical. So the most typical kind of Sicilian play that you'll get in your play is when both sides castle on opposite flanks, okay? So white typically castles on the queen side, black castles on the king side, and we try and create an attack, drum up something by pushing the pawns like g4, g5, h4, h5, and so on. And this is exactly what's going to happen. So again, black played kind of poorly in this game. Now, why is this move a mistake? I mean, this move is kind of natural in some positions, but here, specifically, the problem is that after g4, g5, this knight would really like to return to d7. Okay, so it's far less clumsy than on e8, where it had to go. By the way, if it goes to h5, there's another set of problems, another set of ways to exploit this. So one of those is to try and go bishop h3, and the idea is to go bishop g4. Is to go bishop g4 and put pressure on this guy. And this guy doesn't, you'll notice that he doesn't have any squares to go to. And if black has to go, let's say like this, if black has to go g6, this is catastrophic for black's king safety. So that's one of the problems. He goes knight e8, h4. Again, the game just flows. This was played in a simultaneous exhibition in 1997. g6, this is the second mistake I would like to point out. By the way, black was 2100, so he probably was not focused at all during this game, or maybe just in awe of the presence of the almighty Anatoly Karpov. But this move is also a mistake. Again, you'll notice that it's what we've talked about. It's a hook, right? A hook is this kind of pawn tension that is really favorable for one side, and that the other guy cannot easily dissolve. Here he's kind of just toast. So he decides to go f4 first, just grabbing more space. Finally, we get the opposite sides castling. Black goes for some counterplay, but it's far too late. Okay, so for example, this position would be interesting probably if white's pawns were like this. And I'm pretty sure white would be better there. But here, you can see that white's play like just developed too quickly, and black is actually just lost already. So he goes b4, knight e2, no problem. Queen a5. Let me just show you something like a more in other circumstances, black's counterplay would be based around something like this. I'm just making like waiting moves for white just to showcase what I want to showcase. Black's counterplay usually comes in this form. It's pretty much the same for white in the other side. So b3, and this creates some problems because if you take with the a pawn, yes, black is sacrificing a pawn, but he opens the a file, which is a great source of counterplay. And if we take, usually what we do is take and do this, and just close everything off. But now black should try and create some threats here at some point, trying to go d5 and sacrifice the bishop on a3. This is quite typical as well. But of course you can see here that this is just fair land because white has made a million winning moves, and even after all these winning moves, I think white is still winning because like d5 is not powerful enough right now. Back to reality, just knight b1, knight g7. What is the knight doing in the fianchetto? No one knows. Knight g3, and black decides to go b3. So there's no big idea. He's entirely just giving up a pawn in order not to get mated. But little did he know that like white still has a mating attack with rook h2 and then taking on g6. Like the king is still rather in dire straits. I don't think he's gonna get mated actually, but he'll probably resign before that. Check, bishop c4, bishop h6. Okay, actually he would have gotten mated in like two moves here, but he resigned. So again, a very typical game in the Sicilians. Of course, black played it quite poorly, but you will see lots of these mistakes as well in the 1200, 1400, 1600, 1000 ELO range. So definitely a great game to learn from. Next, we'll go to the French defense. Also, I have chosen a very typical kind of structure. So again, these moves are all covered in the theoretical section, and we get here, we get to this position after bishop e3, which is like one of the most classical positions in the French defense. And so the basic ideas is, okay, white has claimed all of the space in the center. Black is counterattacking it with a lot of strength as well, and he'll try to make f6 work at some point to further chip away at the center. But the advantage of having so much space is that it's easier for us to create an attack, and so that's usually our game plan. This pawn on d5 also is a little bit of a thorn in black's shoe, and we'll try to create an attack against black's king. Black is doing the same, a6, b5, bishop e2, bishop e7. And now I would really like to point out this idea that white played, that I believe is not even the most popular move at all. And yeah, it's not the most popular move, but quite interesting. And white was a grandmaster, so he definitely knew what he was doing. And it's quite typical as well. So it's this of knight d1. Okay, again, underdeveloping a piece. So here's the deal. The knight doesn't stand well on c3 because it's in the way of these pawn attacks, and also it doesn't have any scope, any future. So chess is like really a game. I mean, it can be boiled down to a game where you're just trying to improve your pieces and gain as much activity as possible. And in general, if you have more activity than your opponent, you have an advantage. So we should always look for ways to improve our pieces, basically. Just because the knight is on c3 doesn't mean it's well placed. So he goes knight d1. The knight looks to head to f2. And later on, as we'll see, it will try to do something on the king side with knight h3 or knight g4. Okay? At the same time, another thing white is doing after... by the way, before we talk further about the knight, this castles, short castles was really well played. Long castles is a very typical mistake in these positions because, again, like black will probably castle short at some point, and we just feel like, okay, I want to put my king on the opposite flank in order to push my pawns. But it's a big mistake because, well, the center is so close that black doesn't really have to castle short. Even if he did, the problem is that we are already getting steamrolled with all these pawns. Okay, so again, because the center is closed, and the king side especially is even more closed, it doesn't make any sense to put our king here right in the line of fire of where black is playing. So yeah, long castles is a typical mistake in these positions. Short castles is better. And now another benefit of this maneuver, knight d1 to f2, is that we can make this move c3. Okay, so please take a mental picture of this. This is, even without the pawn on f4, like these connect 4 pawns are the ideal structure that we can get in the French defense. Now we can get it immediately by doing the advanced French, which is back here, just pushing the pawn immediately. We can do this, we get the connect 4. But I ruled against this in my recommendation because I don't think it's that suitable for the ELOs that we are discussing, like 1400, 1200, whatever. Because it's hard to play with overextended pawns in general, okay? Now this is a different deal here because the pawn is overextended, but like we even have this pawn on f4, and the whole center is so compact and it's so safe that I don't feel like it's easier to play these positions than the ones in the advanced French. But of course, this is all like subjective. This is my recommendation. So now a very instructive mistake by black is this move c4. Okay, so you'll notice that against us castling queenside, this was a good move because our king is already stuck on this side of the board. So black can close this off and then go b4 and eventually open the board again. Now with our king all the way here on the right side of the board, this is a mistake because black now will really struggle to find counterplay. Also, this bishop just died, right? If you look at this freaking bishop, it just died inside of all of this wall of pawns. So we should be careful about these pawn pushes in general. Like what I mean by pawn pushes is changing the structure in this way, like locking the structure. We always really have to think about whether it's like it makes sense for us to lock the structure or not. Now a better move is just b4. Okay, much more natural. Well, to someone that is accustomed to seeing these positions, of course. And even what I want to do with black, like if I were black, I would be doing this a5. And now, I mean, I have two ideas, but the thing that I want to do most is trade off this bishop. Now, black here might be even running out of time to do this because even with this desirable positional exchange, like the dynamics of the position are not in black's favor because already these pawns are really getting close to you know, roll over black's king. But this is in general what I want to do. Okay, exchanging these bishops is a core concept of the French defense. Another thing that I want to do with black is like go a4, a3, and try and just blow open again all of this ideal structure. And if we can blow open the base of the pawn structure, eventually we'll get to these ones and just sort of destroy white's center. So that's really our goal. So black goes c4 instead, and now you'll notice that white just gets very easy play, like a free hand on the king side to do whatever he wants. It's not dangerous to push these pawns in front of our king. You'll notice that the king is by no means weak whatsoever for two reasons, and they are like intertwined. So one is that we have a million pieces here defending our king. Okay, that's reason number one. And reason number two is that black has 0 pieces attacking our king. Okay, so like if we had 2 defending and black had like 4 attacking, that's one thing. But black has a grand total of 0 pieces attacking our king, like even remotely close. And we have 500,354 pieces defending it. So there's really no problem there. Actually, white has aggressive intentions, as you might have noticed. So again, he plays in a very systematic way. I really want you to learn from this. So he gets the knight out of the way in order to play rook f2, rook g2. Black trades. Black is not really doing much. He's maneuvering pieces, but not really to his benefit. And rook f1. Again, you'll notice a trait of strong players is that if possible, they bring all of the pieces into the action. Okay, and this was made possible because black did not put enough pressure. He did not make enough counterplay in order to stop this. Okay. And he keeps making these waiting moves. a5, rook f2, b4, knight f4. White is just finding a way here to maneuver his pieces in order to create an attack. And now the final maneuver that I really like, you'll notice that all of our pieces are pretty well placed. There's a lot of ideas here, but this one I like because it's slow and it speaks to black's lack of counterplay. So how can what is the piece that we can improve the most right now? And the answer is this bishop. Bishop d1, bishop c2. And now you'll notice the difference of the bishop here on e2 and c2. Here it's really well placed, and black's demise will be will come very shortly. So white sacrifices a piece. I mean, this is not even hard, honestly, for almost any elo, I would say, because look, Kasparov had this rule that if you have 3 more attackers than your opponent's defenders, you can sacrifice. The sacrifice should work. And here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against 1. I will give him the extra knight here on d7. So we have what, 6 against 2. So it's really not hard to see that this should work. And black just resigned here out of shame because, yeah, because there's mate. Again, a very instructive game, and I'm choosing these games purposefully to show you like typical structures and typical sort of fights that happen out of the gate of these positions. Okay, and the final thing we're going to look at is the Caro-Kann. So one of the lines that exists is this knight of 6. It's very trendy nowadays, actually, so I think you'll face this quite a lot, this structure. It's kind of funky looking, but yeah, there's some advantages for black. I mean, it's just playable. Also very theoretical and popular is this line bishop f5. But today we're looking at this one. First of all, notice how white develops his pieces here. Very important. He goes c3, bishop d3, and knight e2. Okay, so a very typical mistake is to go knight f3 in these positions. This is not a good square for the knight. Again, like, it's not terrible. I'm not saying, like, it's not a mistake. It's just inaccurate because you have to think about, like, don't just make automatic moves. Think about actually what the pieces are doing in each square. And the knight on e2 can go to f4, can go to g3. And the knight from f3 doesn't really do that much because of this pawn on f5, f6, right? And we can put it on h4, but still, like, it's an idea, but it's not ideal. Okay, so bishop d3, knight e2, queen c7, queen c2. This is also pretty theoretical, and now black makes an early mistake here. It's very instructive, and it's very, you know, it's like he's forgiven for making this mistake because it's very natural. He goes g6. Now, this is not great, again, for the reason that we've covered like a million times today. But I see that this is a very recurring mistake in lower rated players' play, is that he's creating a hook again, and we should go h4. Okay, so basically, if your plan is to attack, as soon as you see this kind of pawn advancement, think whether you can exploit it with some pawn tension, right? Better would be h6 or even h5. But because of like this would be very theoretical, but because of the exact move order black has chosen, like h5 is not it's not as strong here as in the main line. We'll get to that in a later video, but h6 here is just safer. Instead, he goes g6, thinking he's all safe. White goes bishop h6. Even better was to go h4 immediately, but he goes bishop. Castle's long. Again, he has aggressive intentions. Knight d7, h4. And now it's black's last chance, actually, already. The position is just tough because white is going h5 next. And then he's taking, opening up the enemy's king. And at some point, he's going to sack on g6. So black needed to go f5 here, closing off this diagonal. h5, knight f6. And he finds some coordination for his pieces. hg, fg. We don't want to open up the h file for the rook. So take like this. Sure, the king, you know, it's a little bit breezy, but if check, we can go bishop e6. And black is not out of the woods here, but this would have been his best chance. Instead, he goes c5. Can't blame him for that, but after h5, this is all like forced. h5, knight f8, because, again, for example, just to showcase, we are threatening to just sack the bishop here, and the game is over. Take, this is mate immediately. So knight f8 had to be played, and now dc5. Bishop takes, and knight f4. And again, white's intentions are not hidden at all. He's going to take, in some way take on g6, take on g6 again, sack everything, take this knight first if he wants to. So very trivial stuff. Black goes f5 to close off the diagonal, but it's a little too late. hg. Now fg6. I mean, here taking with the h-pawn was better, but again, it's still pretty bad. It's not like it would save him. Like knight d5 threatens the queen and threatens to come to f6 with a devastating fork. And after something like this, we're just gonna go rook e1 or whatever. Yeah, white is still winning. But fg6 even hastened that loss, because now after check, king h8, queen d2, we just threatened to take on f8 and take on g6, winning absolutely everything, and that's what happened. So bishop f8, he tried some tactic, some flawed tactic, and after queen g5, he resigned, because he's just getting mated, I believe, with rook h7 next, and no matter how black takes, rook h8 will be mate. So yeah, white clearly showed his superiority in this game, but you'll notice that he did not have to make any difficult decisions. Of course, he had to calculate well, relatively well in the deciding moments, like here, for example. Like, of course, the moves are precise in general, but black, my point is that black lost largely due to his misunderstanding of the position, like which pawns to move when he attacked the h7 pawn, and creating this unnecessary hook. And so if you know these things, and of course there's a million things to know in the opening, that's why we're making this very long series, but I hope that if you see my videos, you'll at least gain some information about this, and you can outplay some more of your opponents. So that's all for me today, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. It was, as promised, shorter than the last one, and I'll see you soon with the next one. Peace out.